Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sisters of the Strange. I'm Landrey.
I'm Shae.
And we are back for part 2 of our Divination little series. This episode probably will not be as long as the first half, but we'll see.
It's fine.
One thing I was going to use, it was my little, we always have a little bit of a chat piece in the beginning. Mine was going to be that we had someone from Essex comment, and I was like, ah! And like the day before that, someone from Aberdeen in Scotland commented. They made fun of how we said Edinburgh. You're supposed to say Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
Let me tell you a story real quick about that. So we have an Edinburgh in Texas. And it's spelt the same way, but with no H at the end. And for my work, I submit RFQs, which are requests for qualifications. So like the city will put it out saying like, we need a professional civil engineering firm, answer with your qualifications, your resumes, all of this. It's like a 90-page document that not really, it's a very large document though that I turn in. And the whole entire packet, every time it was supposed to say Edinburgh, I spelled Edinburgh. And my bosses were like, so we're not going to get accepted for that because we clearly seem like we don't know the city, even though we do a lot of work around there as well. But it was all my fault because I spelled Edinburgh the whole time.
Edinburgh.
And yeah, Edinburgh. But I dream about being back there every single day. And I went to Aberdeen. Like it was like our second night, I think, in Scotland, second or third night. Like we landed, I think it was probably our second night because we went to a few of the castles that are along that route. And Aaron and I were kind of like, we were at one pub and they were like, oh, we close at 10. So we went to another pub and there was dogs at a table. And I went over to pet the dog. And then we ended up sitting with them and making friends with the whole table. And then we met a guy at the table and his name was Johnny, which I think I've mentioned Johnny before. But we met Johnny. And he actually lived in Houston his whole life not his whole life. He lived in Houston until he was 6. And then they moved over there.
That's so cool.
So Johnny just took us in. I have a picture of Johnny in my phone still. He took us to get kebabs. And I was like, oh, like skewers? Yeah. No, over there it's burritos. Like where they like shave meat into a burrito. It's that's what it is over there. So we were actually going for pizza. We're just mind you, my husband and I just like make friends with this guy. And then we're just following him around Aberdeen. And
I wonder if our friend knows Johnny.
I don't know. Do you know Johnny? But it was a very fun night. Followed him around, just like willingly followed this random guy around, which he was like I'm not going to say he was smaller than my husband. So like my husband could punch him in the head if I needed him to, right? But I felt safe. I felt safe anyways. But we're following him. We end up going to this pizza place and they were like closing their doors. So we go and get kebabs. It's like 2 a.m. Johnny walks us back to our hotel, says goodnight, and we part ways. Haven't
never
heard
seen
from
him
Johnny
again.
Ever again. Have a picture of him
Johnny.
still. It was so much fun though. We set the fire alarm off at our hotel. We were trying to go in the wrong door.
It happens. It's fine.
But it was a really fun time. So thank you, because you brought up a good memory from Aberdeen, because that was so much fun.
I literally texted Landry and I was like, did you see the last comment was from Scotland? And she was like, I just read it.
Yeah. I was sitting at, my niece had to cheer 3 games in a row. 3. She started at 4:30 and wasn't done till like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Insane. And so I was sitting at her stuff and I was reading the comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
so
that was super exciting. I miss being there. My husband and I, when we were planning our trip that we're going on, that's upcoming, we were like, we could fly to Scotland. And I was like, yeah, but it's like 2.5, 3 days of travel combined. And we only have like 7 days to go. So we'd only really be there for like 4, which would still be a blast. But should we do that?
Yeah.
Probably should have. But no, we'll go back because we dream about it. We're like considering even buying, like we were considering buying somewhere around there and like Airbnb and having a management company so we could go anytime because we loved it that much. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll get to the episode. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like yapping a little bit. So we just talked about divination, which we went through the history. So if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, definitely listen to part 1 first, because we go over the history of divination, where it began, how it started. And like it started in Mesopotamia as a form of ways for people to speak to the gods or to interpret signs from the gods. And then from there, it moved through like the Chinese dynasties. It moved through Aztec, Mayan calendars, things like that. People were reading all of the signs. And then we got to modern day where people are still reading tarot cards and Ouija boards and things like that. Those are things people are using, or dowsing rods. It's forms. How do I say this correctly? It's instruments that people are using to seek guidance from the future or things like that. What's strange is how it's gone from being signs from like the gods and things like that to just any spirit. People are willing to accept their answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely interesting. The shift of like, we will only trust this because it's supposed to keep us alive. And then it went underground. And then now it's after it went kind of underground, people are willing to listen to whatever comes through for these signs, which is we didn't talk about that in the last episode. I think that's an interesting.
Yeah, that is an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. Gross.
Mm.
Okay. So let me tell you a story. A young woman, we'll call her Anna, was fascinated by old rituals. She grew up hearing family legends and strange bits of folk magic. One of these stories was about a game, one that girls used to play on Halloween night, back when Halloween wasn't all candy and costumes, but at a night when the veil between worlds was said to be thin. The ritual was simple. At midnight, you take a single candle, a handheld mirror, and stand at the bottom of a dark staircase. You then walk backward up the steps, carefully holding the mirror so you can just barely see behind you. If done correctly, the reflection will reveal the face of the man you're destined to marry. But if you see a skull instead, it's a death omen, a sign you won't live to marry anyone at all. Anna didn't believe in it. Not really. She thought it was just an old piece of Halloween lore, like bobbing for apples or telling ghost stories. But that year, she decided to try it, just for fun. So close to midnight, she lit her candle and turned off every light in the house. The glow of the flame flickered across the walls as she climbed the first step backward, then another, with her heart pounding harder with each one. Halfway up, she raised the mirror. At first, she saw only her reflection, pale and flickering in the candlelight. But then, something shifted. Another face appeared over her shoulder. Not a skull, not her own face, but the blurry, shadowy features of a stranger. But before she could react, the image moved, twisting its mouth into a wide grin. Anna screamed, dropping the mirror, which shattered on the steps below her. The candle went out, plunging her into darkness. The next morning, she told herself it was just nerves, just a trick of the light. But she couldn't explain the sound she'd heard when the candle went out, a low whisper that seemed to say her name. This ritual is just one of the countless practices where divination crosses into the paranormal, where it stops being about symbols and starts becoming something far more dangerous, direct spirit contact. We're going to explore the darker side, the seances, the Ouija boards, the mirror rituals, and the belief that divination can do more than predict the future. It can open doors you might not be able to close. Now let's jump ahead to the mid-1800s, a period when the Western world became absolutely fascinated with the afterlife. Wait, pause. So that game that I keep mentioning, we've talked about before.
Yes.
If it sounds familiar, it's because it is what we talked about during the Bloody Mary episode when we said that that was an old form of divination, but it also kind of carried into what Bloody Mary potentially became. They say Bloody Mary maybe came from that game.
Okay.
So we've mentioned it before.
Yes.
So I mentioned it at the beginning of the first episode, tied back into this one, but it also is something we've already discussed a little bit.
I thought so, but I was like, well, maybe it just sounds like one of the stories, but it's different. But
it's a different story of that story, but it is the same.
Okay.
Same kind of concept, yeah. So now let's jump ahead to the mid-1800s, a period when the Western world became absolutely fascinated with the afterlife, which a lot of this we've mentioned just because a lot of the things we've talked about, Bloody Mary and the Ouija board, all of that, seances and things like that, they all started in the same time period. So we've kind of mentioned some of these things, but it's still fun nonetheless.
Yeah, of course.
So this was known as the Victorian era, an age full of contradictions. On the surface, it was the height of industrial progress. Railways crisscrossed the land, factories powered booming cities, and new inventions reshaped daily life. Yet at the same time, it was also an age where death was ever present. High infant mortality, outbreaks of cholera and tuberculosis, bloody wars like the Civil War, and short life expectancies. All of that death showed that grief was a universal human experience. But Victorian culture didn't hide death, it ritualized it. Elaborate mourning customs, black veils and clothing, post-mortem photography, and strict etiquette about how long one should mourn a spouse or a child all reflected this ritualistic behavior. With all of this death, it is no surprise that people yearned for some way to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. Out of this longing to talk to someone you loved and lost started the movement of spiritualism, as we've mentioned in previous episodes. But, unlike other forms of divination that focused on predicting harvests, battles, or destiny, spiritualism was built on the belief that the dead could and should communicate directly with the living. It wasn't just about interpreting signs from the gods, it was a direct dialogue with loved ones who had passed on. Why did I say that like that? Passed on.
So like Zach
That was
Bagans.
very Zach Bagans of me. I was thinking the exact same thing when you said that.
We want answers.
I saw a thing today that said he extended for more episodes, and I'm like, shocker.
Blessed.
Yeah. No surprise there. So spiritualism exploded in popularity in part because of the famous cases like the Fox sisters in New York, who in 1848 claimed to hear rapping sounds from a spirit in their home. It all began, like I just mentioned, in 1848 in the small hamlet of Hydesville, New York, with two teenage sisters, Maggie and Kate Fox. The girls claimed that they were hearing strange, unexplained rapping sounds echoing throughout their home. At first, the noises terrified the family, but the sisters soon realized they could communicate with whatever force was making them. They devised a simple system, 1 knock for yes and 2 knocks for no. Through this code, the invisible presence seemed to answer questions, naming a murdered peddler, giving details of his death, and providing information the sisters should not have known. Word spread quickly, and the neighbors came to witness the phenomenon themselves. Some swore they could hear the ghostly raps with their own ears. The story of the Fox sisters swept through America like wildfire, sparking both excitement and controversy. Suddenly, families across the country wanted to try their own spirit communication. What began as knocks on a wall in a farmhouse evolved into full seances. Seances then became a cultural craze. Participants described tables tipping or levitating, mysterious knocks echoing in the silence, and even objects moving seemingly on their own. Mediums would slip into trances and deliver messages said to be from departed loved ones. Some claimed to channel full conversations, others described ghostly touches or cold breezes sweeping through the room. For many grieving families, seances offered more than spectacle, they offered comfort. In a century plagued by high mortality rates, the idea that you could sit down and speak with a lost son, daughter, or spouse was both revolutionary and deeply healing. By the late 1800s, as seances and spiritualism spread across America and Europe, new tools emerged to make spirit communication easier and more accessible. One of the most endearing was the talking board. A flat surface marked both letters, numbers, and simple words like yes, no, and goodbye. Participants placed their hands on a small heart-shaped pointer called a planchette. Why can I not read? Which was said to move under the guidance of unseen forces to spell out messages from the dead. The famous of these was the Ouija board, officially patented in 1891. Strikingly, it wasn't originally presented as a tool of the occult. It was marketed as a parlor game, a source of entertainment for families and friends. Advertisements promised mystical amusement and the thrill of talking to spirits from the comfort of your own home. But almost immediately, the Ouija board's reputation darkened. Stories began to circulate of chilling encounters. People would ask lighthearted questions about love, fortune, or gossip, started to receive deeply personal answers they couldn't explain. Some swore the board revealed the names of deceased relatives no one had spoken aloud in the room. Others claimed it offered predictions of tragedies that later came true. In some cases, the planchette spelled out words in foreign languages that none of the participants supposedly knew. And then there was the darker tales. Users reported the planchette moving violently on its own, jerking across the board to spell out threats, curses, or names of the unknown entities. People spoke of sessions ending abruptly when the board spelled goodbye without anyone touching it, as if the spirit had chosen to leave on its own terms. By the early 20th century, the Ouija board had become a cultural phenomenon, appearing in households, novels, and even Hollywood films. Yet it also became a source of fear. Clergy warned against it, calling it a tool of demons. Paranormal investigators cautioned that the Ouija board was more than a toy, describing it as a portal. That uneasy reputation has never faded. Even today, many people insist the Ouija board is not just harmless fun, but a dangerous invitation. For believers, every session carries a risk. Once you open the door, you never know who or what might step through. Mirrors have also always had an air of mystery. In many cultures, they aren't just objects that reflect our physical image, they're believed to reflect our soul. That's why, in folklores, mirrors are often treated with caution and even fear. Across the world, traditions warn that mirrors can act as portals, which are thin barriers between our world and the spirit realm. One of the most widespread beliefs in this is the custom of covering mirrors after a death. In Victorian households, draping cloth over mirrors during mourning was almost ritual. The reasoning was to prevent newly departed souls from becoming trapped in the glass, or more chillingly, to stop something else from coming through. Mirrors also became tools of scrying, one of the oldest forms of divination. By gazing into a mirror or into a reflective bowl of water, a practitioner might slip into a trance and begin to see visions, sometimes of the future, sometimes of hidden truths. But with this came serious warnings. Folklore insists, never scry alone, spirits are more likely to take advantage when there is no witness. Never scry in complete silence. Silence is said to invite whatever presence lingers to draw closer. Always end with a ritual of protection to close the doorway before leaving the mirror unattended, because without these safeguards, believers warn that you're not simply seeing visions, you're inviting something to look back at you. So those are all different ways of divination that we use today.
Mm-hmm. Who's we?
Oh, well, I don't.
Nay, me.
A lot of people.
I'm just kidding.
So a lot of that is information we've gone over in previous episodes, clearly, but y'all didn't know when we were presenting those things necessarily that they were divination. And now that you've had a full history of what divination is and you think back to that, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That tracks. So throughout history, divination has always come with a set of rules. These weren't casual guidelines or suggestions. They were treated like survival tips passed down from generation to generation. For practitioners, ignoring them wasn't just careless, it was dangerous. People believed that the tools of divination opened doors to forces beyond human control, and with that came responsibility, which might be why only important people back in the day could do it, like augurs, like the actual or daykeepers. I never really thought about that. Even when I was writing all of that, I didn't think about that. But maybe that's why, is because it's like, maybe they don't want me out there interpreting things and telling you something. It has to be with a certain group of people, ones that know how to protect themselves from forces beyond, and ones who know how to trust the actual right thing, read the right thing, I guess, basically. Yeah. So these rules were less about superstition and more about protection, a way to shield both the diviner and the seeker from energies that could turn hostile if disrespected. Some of the most common warnings carried across cultures and eras. One is to never ask about your own death. To do so was thought to tempt fate, pulling the shadow of death closer to you. Many believe that by naming or trying to predict your end, you are inviting doom, as though destiny itself would rush forward to claim you, which I would not want to.
Oh, no.
That reminds me of the TikTok you sent the other day where it's like, is that a Reaper?
Oh, yeah, that was freaky.
I did not like that.
But I had to send it to somebody else.
It was the first thing I watched when I woke up one morning. I was laying in bed still and I was like, I'm getting out of bed. Heck no. She sent a video and it's like someone's recording from their apartment into another series of apartments. And it looks like a guy potentially in a white shirt is like on his knees, basically, like looking up at this just dark black figure. And it's like, kind of looks like it keeps like touching him and like reaching for him. It looks like at one point the guy tries to like kind of like sidestep and run away. Very strange.
Very creepy looking.
Did not like it. A lot of people in the comments were like, have we become so desensitized that we're not calling 911? We're recording instead. And I was like, that's fair. Another warning is to never practice divination in graveyards or places of tragedy. Such spaces were considered thin places where the veil between worlds is fragile, but the energy there is also thought to be heavy, restless, and even corrupted. Asking questions in those spaces risks drawing in not helpful guides, but angry or wandering spirits eager to attach themselves to the living.
Yeah,
duh,
for sure.
There's a ton of people who do, at least I know, of Ouija boards in graveyards, which I don't want to play with one in a church. No. I don't want to play with one anywhere.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
I'm like, mentioned it once, I'll say it again. I don't even want to play with the AI one. I'm like, nah.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you.
Yeah. The third warning is to always close the session properly, whether with a prayer, a protective charm, or simply thanking the spirits. Closure is essential. To leave a divination ritual open was like leaving your door unlocked at night. You might not notice anything at first, but sooner or later, something unwanted could slide in.
Ew.
I'm like, okay, so anytime I guess flipping a coin necessarily isn't divination, but if it is, do I need to start thanking the coin for flipping?
Yeah.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you, goodbye. Maybe.
I'm not sure either. Another one is to never burn or destroy a divination tool improperly. Mirrors, tarot decks, bones, or boards were seen as more than objects. They were thought to carry spiritual ties and even personalities. To break or burn one was believed to anger the entities that were connected to it. If a tool had to be retired, it was to be cleansed or ritually buried with respect, the same way you might lay a body to rest. What unites all of these rules is the recognition that divination is not a harmless pastime. It has always been seen as a conversation with the unseen, and like any conversation, the other party deserves respect. Break the rules and you risk turning a source of guidance into a source of fear. Follow them and you protect yourself from becoming the one thing every diviner dreads, the victim of their own curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with all those rules, I mentioned at the beginning of episode 1 or somewhere near the beginning of episode 1 or part 1 of that I had looked up, was divination ever used in the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
This is where it breaks down though.
Okay.
So early on, divination was not only practiced, but sometimes sanctioned by God, depending on the method and person using it. But over time, especially in later texts, many forms of divination became associated with paganism and were condemned. So that is, I'm pretty sure in the very first episode, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go over a couple of the verses that actually have this in here. So I'm going to tell Shae what the verse is. She'll read it, and then I'll tell you what it's broken down to, basically. So that one is Exodus 28:30.
Which says, commands that the Urim and Thummim be placed in the breastplate of judgment to be worn over Aaron's heart, so that he could continually carry the judgment or God's decisions for the Israelites before the Lord. And it says that the exact nature of these things is uncertain, but they are generally understood to have been objects, possibly lots, used by the priest to determine God's will in doubtful manners.
Yeah, so that's
Matters. I'm sorry.
It matters. That's what this says. It says, these were sacred lots, possibly stones or dice-like objects used by Israelite priests to receive divine guidance. They were kept in the high priest's breastplate and used to make decisions or answer yes/no questions. This was considered God-approved divination.
Mm-hmm. Exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah. So there's also casting lots. And so that was also mentioned in the book of Samuel. But there are casting lots. These are Proverbs 16:33.
Proverbs 16:33 is a Bible verse that states, "The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord." This verse highlights God's ultimate sovereignty and control over all outcomes, even those that appear to be by chance. While ancient people cast lots for decision-making, this proverb teaches that God directs the outcome of such actions, ensuring that his purposes are accomplished rather than being left to mere accident or human whims.
Okay. Yeah. So this says that is essentially a form of random chance divination, throwing marked objects to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So they are throwing their random chance objects, but it's God's choice, but they're throwing it and it's aligning with God's choice, basically. So there's also a few different things of casting lots. One of them is in the book of Jonah. There's sailors cast lots to determine who caused the storm, and Jonah was chosen. And then in the New Testament, Acts 1:26, the disciples cast lots to choose Matthias as the replacement for Judas. So then there's also a section of, it doesn't give me for this one, but for dreams and visions, it says God communicates through dreams often, and Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dreams in Genesis, and Daniel does the same for Babylonian kings. The prophets also receive divine messages through dreams and visions. So then there's signs and omens, and this one is one you can look up if you'd like to.
Mm-hmm.
So there's signs and omens. It's Judges 6:36.
So Judges 6:36 through 40, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says, Gideon said to God, "If you will save Israel by my hands as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you said." And that is what happened. Gideon rose early the next day and he squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water.
Okay. Yeah. So Gideon asked for signs using a fleece. If the fleece is wet and the ground is dry, or vice versa, he'll know God's will. So it's basically asking for God's signal, sign, his divine power, which is, those were all acceptable forms of divination
In the Bible.
And of Christ. So there's condemned forms of divination as well. So in Deuteronomy, there is a quote that says, "Witchcraft, soothsaying, and sorcery were harshly forbidden." And it's Deuteronomy 18:10 through 12.
So Deuteronomy 18:10 describes prohibitions against occult practices, stating, there shall not be found among you anyone who sacrifices his son or daughter in the fire, or practices divination or sorcery, or interprets omens, or engages in witchcraft. So that's crazy.
So that's
child sacrifice.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I would
agree.
I would agree in prohibiting that as well.
So this also includes astrology, necromancy, and then diviners and enchanters from neighboring pagan cultures were especially condemned. So divination in the Bible is nuanced. It's not that all forms were bad, but rather that the source of the guidance, like you had said, and the method mattered.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically what you said, how you were like, well, I guess it's kind of your intention, like what you're wanting out of it. So that kind of answers a few questions, because I was very curious. Like Shae brought up in the Hex Hollow Murders, can you practice witchcraft and still be a Christian? Like that was a question I think I had asked, is like, what's the balance there?
Yeah.
And so clearly I think you would have to refer to the Bible a lot more for that. But I also would say interpretation. That is one thing about the Bible that I think is an interesting, I don't know how to say this correctly, is an interesting piece of the Bible, is everyone can interpret it in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd almost say like, you probably could interpret the witchcraft part of the Bible in your own way as well.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't know how to say this correctly without, like, I don't want one side or one side to feel bad. But
so basically what we're speaking about right now is just us answering the question that we had and others had, and people who had sent us stuff saying like, yes, because the Bible says this. We're not saying either way is right or wrong, and saying that you can only practice these things if you're a Christian and you're doing it. You do whatever you want. If you want to practice witchcraft however you want, go for it, girl.
Yeah, that's the point. And it was just a question I had.
Yeah.
Because, well, what are you allowed to believe in at the same time as believing in something like this? Or what are you not supposed to believe in, and things like that. And it's a very weird, muddled area. But I'm very interested in learning more. Like someone commented from the Hex Hollow Murders and was like, there's so much you can learn. But I think a lot of things in this world, divination, talking to a spirit, really anything, songs, everyone interprets everything completely different. Mm-hmm. You can interpret every single thing of what you want.
Yep.
Based on your own knowledge of whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting to me. Sorry if this sounds very confusing. I'm kind of confusing myself. I don't want to make one side or one side mad, because it's not, I'm not telling you to believe something or what I believe in or any of that. I'm trying to make sense of what can all be
based on what we've always known, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
It's just a very widespread world out there that we have no idea about. And that's part of why we do this, is so that we can try to figure it out for ourselves.
To learn.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting.
Yeah. That was a very interesting little snippet there.
Yeah. That's what I was like, I needed to understand it better. So I looked that up separately from all my research. But then I also looked up some more modern forms of divination that aren't actually like paranormal, mm-hmm. Spirituality paranormal, just simple ones, like kind of like almost superstitious, that's rooted in folklore. So like I've mentioned multiple times, flipping a coin. It's used to make a decision that you're unsure about. And it is a direct descendant of casting the lots, like the Bible, or you're essentially asking the universe or fate to guide your choice. Mm-hmm. There is cloud watching. So looking at clouds and seeing shapes or patterns is a form of scrying. Yes, I didn't know that. I was curious because of the part where people look at stars and things like that. I watch the clouds all the time and try and
find shapes and stuff.
Yeah, so I just thought it was interesting.
Huh. Does there have to be like a ritual performed while you're doing that for it to be considered scrying, or is that just...
Truthfully, no idea.
Oh, interesting.
We'd have to look that up further. But it says in ancient times, cloud, winds, and lightning were considered messages from the gods. So, I mean, clearly, like, they watched weather patterns. Yeah. That's part of that. But I don't know if there has to be some sort of intense situation. Maybe.
Okay.
We'll have to look. Clearly watching the stars, stargazing, animal behavior, which we've also already mentioned, but...
That's a big one for me.
Yeah, watching like the cattle or watching your goats, where your goats, watching the birds, helps you know what the time of the year, seasons, things like that. Is rain coming? Mm-hmm. And like my dog, like your dogs. Yeah. How often do you listen to your dog? Mm-hmm. I listen to my dog all the time. They often know something's about to happen before it happens.
Oh, yeah.
Or like little dog hates storms. She will be freaking out one day. And I'm like, dude, what? Like, why are you? Yeah. Your ears are warm. You're acting a little panicked. What's wrong? And then like 3 hours later, there'll be a thunderstorm. And I'm like, she felt it.
That's how Tonks is too. She knows when it's going to even just rain. It doesn't even have to thunderstorm. She hates it all. And she will let me know that it's coming. Yeah.
Help me.
Yeah.
Reading tea leaves.
Oh, I've heard of this.
So it's still practiced today, and it's interpreting patterns left by tea leaves or coffee grounds in a cup, and it is often seen as quirky or mystical, but it is a structured form of divination.
They do it in Harry Potter.
I've never seen it before. I've heard of it multiple times, but I've never seen it. I would like to. I was about to say I might watch a YouTube video, but
No, you need to watch them, dude, so you can understand.
okay.
God, it's literally witches and wizards. Get out of here.
Yeah. My bagger. That's what Ashley asked me the other day, because I mentioned one of my favorite games to play. I was talking to her about how I can't sleep at night, and I was like, I just fall asleep playing this game. She's like, is it the same game that Shae plays? And I said, no, Shae plays like Candy Crush Harry Potter.
Yeah, it's Harry Potter Candy Crush, basically.
I was like,
but
nah.
I get to use spells and stuff. It's cool.
Oh, mine is like it's the connections. It's like gives you 16 words, and you have to make 4 groups of 4. I'll play that until my eyes cross, and then I fall asleep to it. It's the only game that will make my brain slow down.
It's probably one that's good for your brain, and mine is just melting my brain away.
Well, my brain rot game, is the sorting game.
The sorting game, I have that too.
Yeah. I'm on like level 1,000. I have a problem.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I don't even want to tell you what level I'm on my Harry Potter game. It's very
You play it every night.
Extremely concerning.
You play it like every night before bed.
I play it
all the time.
every day, constantly. I'm just going to tell you
I would
so
love
we
to
can
know.
just really round this out. Level 5,332.
Good. She just exposed herself. Nice. I appreciate that. That's good.
Thanks.
It's good for you.
Yeah. The first step to knowing you have a problem is admitting you have a problem.
Hi, my name is Shae.
Hi, Shae.
Hi, Shae. I have one final story, and it is called The Uninvited Guest. It is just a little spooky tale.
Okay.
So a group of friends decided to host a seance one night. They lit candles, placed a Ouija board on the table, and jokingly asked if anyone was there. The planchette immediately slid to yes. At first they laughed, thinking someone was pushing it. But as the session went on, the answers grew more specific, names, dates, and events that no one at the table could have known. Then the atmosphere shifted, the temperature dropped, and one friend swore she felt icy fingers brush her shoulder. The board suddenly spelled out, "Let me in." Panicking, they tried to end the session, but the planchette would not move to goodbye. The candles blew out on their own, plunging the room into darkness. And that night, every single person at the seance reported they had the same dream, a shadowy figure standing at the foot of their bed, watching them silently.
Love that.
You're welcome. So be careful. There's got to be some sort of boundary with divination. I don't know if it's something that just every person should do, aside from, maybe reading the birds. I think that's kind of, as long as you have the knowledge behind what bird patterns mean, that's pretty, I would say, straightforward. Most of it's migration patterns, though. So that's, I guess,
which
a
has
form
to do
of
with the weather and blah, 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 blah.
Divination. Blah. So, but it is really, really crazy when you start to think of like, so divination right now is something that we do every day. We read the birds, we read the cattle moving. You read these things every day. And it's like, that's crazy that that's what they used as their form of life. And it was it just seems like such a big word when in reality it can be, but it also can be so simple.
Yeah.
Like task wise.
Yeah. Just day-to-day things.
Do you know any of that?
No, I mean, not really.
I mean, you knew about raiding cattle and stuff like that, but you didn't know it was a form of divination.
Correct.
Yeah.
And like whenever I see like animals and stuff, like one of the big ones that I have to look it up every time because I can never remember. But every once in a while, like every couple of months or so, I haven't seen it in a while, but I will see a huge owl. And there's an owl that lives out here. And sometimes I can hear him, but very rarely. Most of the time I will see him. He will like swoop in front of my car and it scares the absolute hell out of me.
Yeah.
Or I'll see him perched up on this big tree over here right by my house. But it's not like I see him all the time. It's only every once in a while. But I know he's always around. But when I see him, I have to look it up and be like, okay, is the owl a good omen or a bad omen? Because I can never remember. But there's so many different interpretations. And it's like seeing a deer. When you just like randomly see a deer in a weird spot. Like, what does that mean?
Well, aren't the owls, this might be completely left field wrong, but don't owls normally come near a full moon?
I don't know.
Is there any tie there? It's like the crazies come out
Could
with
be.
the full moon,
Yeah,
things
it could
like
be.
that.
I don't know if that's like, I think that's just one of those things where they're always tied together because that's like what you see and
Yeah, that's why I'm like,
media
I don't know
and-
where my brain's
and
at with
things.
that.
But apparently, seeing an owl can have different meanings depending on the situation, the culture, of course, but it can be a sign of good luck, spiritual guidance, or a message from the spiritual world.
Oh.
They also represent or they symbolize wisdom, curiosity, and awareness.
Oh, like seeing a cardinal is supposed to be like a little good like omen or whatever for seeing
Somebody
someone
who's passed.
which was really crazy because there was one day I was talking about someone who'd passed away, and then the next thing I know, there was a cardinal, and I'm like, I don't see those very often.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. So the animal ones is a huge one for me. And I wholeheartedly believe in that.
Yeah. Or my grandmother, her and my papa were married for like 57, 58 years before he passed away. And she'll tell you now, she said, I can be in a room full of people and I will always feel alone because he's not there.
Oh.
And she was doing dishes just out there back. They're out, and her kitchen window's their backyard. And there's just a cardinal that visits all the time.
Aw.
And so she's
so
like,
cute.
hi, Fred. She knows it's him.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so cute. That's how my husband is with big hawks. His grandfather is a hawk.
Interesting.
So when he sees a hawk, like, oh, there he is. One time we were driving and like there was this hawk that just like
the whole way just followed?
flew like next to us as we drove for like 3 minutes. Pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff I definitely believe in.
Yeah. How cool.
And to know that it's a form of divination is very interesting.
At the end of all of it, I feel like divination is just about reading your signs, which falls into numerology, astrology, everything.
Literally
really
all
just
of it.
reading your signs.
Yeah.
So if you have any cool fun facts about this or any cool stories maybe about reading the room around you, reading things around you, reading your signs basically, definitely feel free to send them to us at sisterofthestrangepodcast@gmail.com. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe. I hope that this topic was interesting. I know it's not necessarily the spooky type. I don't know how to say this correctly. I guess it's not necessarily the spooky genre.
Yeah. I mean, but if it's into it.
It follows here, and then we're probably, I guess I can lead you into what I'm thinking. I might change it up. I like to change my path in life a lot. So,
Yeah, don't let her lie to you.
Yeah, I'm like, so take this all with a grain of salt. I am considering from here going to tarot cards, and then from there, I am considering going to witch trials and hunts. That is my research path so far. I have some other spooky stuff to throw in there, but that's kind of why I started here, and it kind of outlines how everything started as like, this is okay, and then it went real bad real fast, and then now it's still on shaky ground.
Yeah.
Which follows the witch trials pretty well.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that.
I'm excited for it.
I have brain rotted all weekend on
I love it.
witch trials, witch hunts, because I'm not just doing like Salem, not doing just that. I'm doing like the entirety.
I love it. I think it's going to be great.
It's intense for sure. Learn a lot. So we'll see you next week.
Next week.
Bye.
Bye.